Hello and welcome to the conversation today as I look at the trending video of which Apostle Victor Ogbe and Apostle Joel Ogebe or Prophet Joel Ogebe had a postcard conversation that in a way they got to mention the relationship between Apostle Arome Osayi and Apostle Micahel. Orokpo. If you're meeting me for the first time in this conversation, I think I would be asking you, where have you been all this while? I've discussed about this before in the past, and probably I think there are some things we need to look at this time around. And of course, let's get into the video.
We have a set of people that have received of that spirit. You know, when I came into the system, I thought ministry was about understanding the message. And if you understand the message and you are well packaged, you'll be able to preach the message with excellence. But I didn't know the spiritual aspect of it until in the place of service, a measure of the spirit came upon me. And the burden that our Father in the Lord bore for more than 18 years, touring campuses to campuses, that spirit articulated that dimension of the burden for me.
You remember?
But this was the same man who said to me before that, okay, go into this ministry.
Yeah, no. At the initial phase, he released us into this youth ministry, campus invasion and all of that.
And in 2 years of trouble, I realized my backbone it took another shape. The backbone, he didn't tell me, go to this campus, go to that campus. The spirit was imparted. And I found myself hopping from one car to another car, from one campus to another campus. How the doors were opening, I didn't know. How the message came, I didn't know. I now understood it's a technology in the spirit. And that technology has been invoked in Adulam. And every student you see here have received a measure of the spirit. And I want to invite every other person in the house this morning that wants to carry the burden of the kingdom to come to Adulam. We have a way of giving you shots of the spirit. And when you receive the shot of the spirit, you may wake up and realize that Brazil have been willed to you. You may wake up and realize the campus have been willed to you. You may wake up and realize the burden of praying for Lagos and Nigeria have been willed to you. You will just find yourself praying from night to morning. You won't know why. You will be conscripted into the intercessory clan because all of these burdens are articulated in the vision on the shoulders of our Father in the Lord. And it's in Adulam that this vision, this burden are disseminated. Once again this morning, I welcome you to the RCM Bible Seminary. Thank you.
Yes, I said I wasn't going to talk about the person of Apostle Micahel Orokpo in a long time after he claimed that I defamed him after I made a video where I was only amplifying what he was saying about what happens amongst pastors themselves, or would I say apostles, with the whole false prophecy and all that. And the video itself was not just about him being discussed, but also Pastor Olumide confirming the same thing at his church. I simply amplified and re-echoed what he said, and I got an email of him saying that I defamed him. Anyway, I felt that probably he's so famous that he believes that being real judge discussing about what he said himself would be defamatory. So I was like, you know what? Maybe when I talk about these people, it becomes a hard time for them to sleep. I hope, Apostle Micahel Orokpo, you still are able to sleep since I decided not to talk about you. But this particular conversation mentioned your name, and that's why I'm talking about you now. I wouldn't even want to do that because I want you to have peace of mind. Okay, so when Apostle Victor Ogbe was discussing with, of course, Apostle Joel Ogebe, prophet, I don't know, prophet, apostle, either ways, everybody is now a prophet, I would say. In that particular conversation, they got to talk about your person, and in the process, I began to understand things even much better because, of course, I'm here to discuss the trend. So here's the thing. If Apostle Victor Ogbe himself was purportedly being released by Apostle Micahel Orokpo at his church.
Because I didn't plan to start a ministry. God invaded me. And when I said, okay, I will take time, let me pray for 2 years first. God said it is now. So I didn't want to become like Jonah, that was sent to Nineveh and he went to a journey of his own device. When I couldn't manage the pressure anymore, I had to succumb. And so when I invaded the city, because I was hardly on ground, I needed a strong man to hold the fort in my absence. And so Pastor Victor has been a strong gatekeeper of what we are doing here. He is a warrior. He is an intercessor. And he has served. Victor has served me for close to 4 years. From 2019, he followed me everywhere, gave him instructions. And even while I started the work, stay, do this. He's been doing it faithfully. But at this time, the Lord has spoken to him that the burdens of the ages past, it's time for it to crystallize. Spirit. Today, as a father blesses a son, I bless you. As an elder brother strengthens a younger one, I strengthen you. And as a man ordained of God, I bring you into higher dimensions of ordination. And so in the name of God the Father, in the name of God the Son, and in the name of God the Holy Ghost, go forward and prosper.
What happened again with Apostle Arome Osayi and Apostle Victor Ogbe recently at his own church? That's what we are discussing in this video. Now, of course, the person that notified me about this was like, George, it's as if this one, it will not be just part 1, part 2, part 3. It might be longer. I don't know, but I want to take it piecemeal as we get to discuss it. And my dear friends, okay, you don't have to be part of this conversation. You didn't get here by mistake. You intentionally clicked on my thumbnail to watch this video. If you are complaining in the comments, are you normal? It's a trend we are discussing. So right here as well, look at this. What is the definition of one being released in ministry? There's something that Apostle Arome Osayi understands. There's something that Apostle Micahel understands when it comes to that public gesture or that public show of releasing in ministry. Listen to what Apostle Arome Osayi says here when he was releasing Minister Opai, who was at RCE in Abuja. Funny enough, we are still talking about the location of Abuja. Wow, that sounds very prophetic. No, it's not prophetic. It's just me using the lingo. Okay, so at that particular point, he said this about releasing in ministry.
Please, if you have a calling into ministry and you are currently with a ministry, don't live in a wrong way. Because if the congregation does not release you, you will notice, are you there? Give me that scripture again, verse 3. Verse 3. And you will notice when there, it was a congregational release. Huh? Congregational release. Like this. It was not something that was done in hiding. It was done in the presence of the people. When they had fasted, when they had prayed, what did they do? And laid, what are you saying there? Their hands on them. So,
now he said a couple of things as well in that video, which I will look at in piecemeal, but that's just the part I thought to play for you. So what happened with Apostle Micahel Orokpo and Apostle Victor Ogbe, where he was being released and ushered in as well? I think Micahel Orokpo explained their relationship clearly, where he spoke about the fact that, you know, when he started his ministry or what God has sent him to do there, it was, you know, Apostle Victor Ogbe that was more of like his right-hand man. Did he talk about him being a son to him categorically? I guess not, but of course they have been brothers, and I think him releasing him as a brother, Victor Ogbe himself talked about it as well when it comes to him having that particular leading for him to start his own ministry, not having been with him up to a year together at Apostle Micahel Orokpo's own ministry over there in Abuja. So
it was in that prayer season that Apostle Michael reached out to me. He said he has received clearance to start his ministry. And since this is what we are facing, he doesn't think we should go our separate way yet. That I should, if God has not given me go ahead to start my work, I should join him. Let's build this ministry he was about to start.
Okay, so join him as an assistant or?
It's just to support what he was.
Okay, as a friend,
yes,
since you're already on ground.
Yes, exactly. And it was a clear discussion. He told me, anytime I feel it's time to move.
Okay, you can now go on your way. Okay.
We give the support. And that was exactly what we did.
That period I was jumping in my parlor, telling people you are fake.
And when we started, the Lord showed us mercy, you know. Amazing work God is doing with him now. But I saw the glory that was coming, the affluence, in the place of prayer. I saw everything. It was so clear. So I knew that if this thing should hit me here, I might not be willing to go and start this labor. Yes. I'm laboring. And then twice, when the thing became glaring, after we started for like 6-8 months, that it was time for me to step aside.
I remember you told me, yes.
I told him. He felt it wasn't time. So he said it's not time, that I should reach out. He now called
our elder.
An elder said, Kai. Say it's not time. I said, okay. So we died the matter.
You sacrificed a lot too.
Yes, wow. And we continued. But after like a month or two, it became very obvious. So I had to tell him again, I said, bro, this thing, man, I still did get more. He said, that means this time around it must be the Lord, that if that's the case, it is good to jump in while the water is still being stirred. And that no problem, the church was going to pray for me and bless me so that I would go ahead and do.
Which they did.
And that was how I left and started this work.
But this time we are still operating, we are not yet reconnected back to power.
When I knew that it was time to leave, I knew that the Lord, every night, in fact, I told Mike, every night I would see Papa.
Yeah, I remember you were troubling me that day.
Every night I would see Papa. I would see myself lying down, I would see myself kneeling down, I would see myself on the altar crying.
For Papa.
It was terrible. I said, who is praying this prayer on my head?
Go back to your father.
I said, boy, see what did happen now. He said, Kai, it's like God is trying to heal my heart of bitterness. And as an intercessor, you can't keep grudges. Anybody who is in the business of prayer,
you can't keep grudges.
You can't keep
so
bitterness.
Yes.
That was not.
I've never known you to be a bitter person.
So indeed, it would be unfair that Apostle Victor Obe was released twice, but for you to be released like officially based on ministerial protocol, or would I say Pentecostal concordance, if I have to put it that way, you have to be released by someone whom you see as a spiritual father. So however you understand the releasing of Victor Obe, at least Victor Obe got to really explain the fact that they were more like brothers, and both of them were more like sons as well at RCN when they were there together. I hope you understand that, my dear friend. So indeed, what happened as well with him and Micahel Orokpo, it was very spiritually charged and dramatic. He fell the same pattern as well. People came and stood by him after he laid hands. The point for which Apostle Arome Osayi came to his own church after he talked about the fact that he was more like a prodigal son, made sense that probably at that point was where he was officially, quote unquote, being released, if I'm to put it that way, based on Apostle Arome Osayi's understanding of what being released itself does entail. But again, you have to ask yourself a question. Him being in the congregation of Victor Obe and having that particular ceremony or that particular situation, just like Apostle Micahel Orokpo was having in his own congregation with the person of Victor Obe, does it get to really add up? Because Apostle Arome Osayi's definition of releasing is, of course, with the congregation, and just like you see a public situation there. But that happened at Victor Obe's own church premises. Was he being released with the congregation, with his own congregation that knew Apostle Victor Obe, or does it just not have any relationship? Because it has to follow the same principle.
Nations were shaped. Whole regions were converted by the efforts of just a few people that had their bearing and their foundation at Antioch. Today, we fulfill a right. The Lord has raised an apostolic company, a homegrown apostolic company in the landscape. And many disciples have evolved from that cantonment. Tonight, we want to pour the blessings of that house upon him, upon his wife, knowing fully well the import of this season that we have come into, and how that God is putting responsibility on the continent of Africa to lead the way in revival, to restoring that which is lost in the continent and in the territory. We believe that because of the strategic position of Nigeria in this whole spiritual mix, that God will remember us and heal our territory. Oh my God. If you are still here, I'd like you to stretch forth your hand in the direction of this man of God, that his voice will rise from this wilderness and many will turn unto righteousness. We exalt your name. In Jesus' mighty name. Now I want to bless you, the congregation, in 1 minute. I want to bless somebody. Oh, you will not fail. You have crossed. You have crossed.
If both of them were not being released like you see happen publicly and with a video and all that, like you see right now, note that Apostle Arome Osayi knows that there is a right way of being released and there's a wrong way of being released. And the right way of being released is what you have seen in both the video of Apostle Micahel Orokpo. But I don't know if it can be said the same way about the video of Victor Obey. So maybe I would say that the caveat right here is the fact that it has to be from someone that is your spiritual father. So when Apostle Arome Osayi was using the scriptures of "and they fasted," and they, looking at the congregation more like a public release, indeed, probably there is a clause there that it just has to be your spiritual father. I don't know if you are getting the point of what I'm saying, looking at the setting of the said release into ministry. Of course, what happened there, you might call it father's blessing, not more like him being released. He's already started his ministry, he's already working, but going back to his father as a prodigal son. So what would you call what happened at Victor Obey's church? Was it him being released, or was it just him receiving a father's blessing for what he is already doing, which, of course, he got a phone call according to Victor Obey that he has been released, just as the person of Micahel Orokpo was released.
As a wise son,
I was in Katsina when Apostle Michael called me and said, Papa has released him, and he told him to tell me that I am also released. You know, but I knew there was a problem. So I was ministering in Katsina. I left Katsina, flew down to Abuja, then moved to Makurdi, and I rushed down to Papa's house. Papa said he was not going to see me. I went like 3-4 times. He said he's not seeing me. So I became frustrated.
But ask yourself a question. How was Micahel Orokpo being released from the ministry? There is no video of that, so probably he was not released in the right way. You might be saying I'm stirring up a conversation that doesn't exist, but till you watch my next video, probably what I'm saying here would not make sense. So what have we discussed in this particular conversation here of this? Number one, the releasing factor. Was Victor Obey himself released twice? During the podcast, he talked about them being released into the whole youth situation that they were handling, of which Micahel Orokpo was in charge, and he was more of like an assisting person, or they were working together in that particular aspect of their job. That kind of releasing indeed is not an official releasing for you to go and start up your own. Him using the word release at that point, maybe he should have used that they were just probably commissioned for them to do this specifically, still as part of the ministry. But when it comes to them being released for them to, leave the ministry and go do their own thing, that was when there was a situation that happened, in which we have talked about before, but now we have a more in-depth revelation, of course, on that, based on Victor Obe's interview with Joel Ogebe, to look at it, of course, more critically. So, indeed, of course, right, the Obe has made it clear that what happened with him and Micahel Orokpo, since after they left, he was serving under Micahel Orokpo's ministry. I think it was the right thing that Micahel Orokpo released him from himself or his ministry as someone that has helped. So that was according to protocol, not as a spiritual father, but following protocol of what should be done with the congregation. And he understood that perfectly. So what happened as well with the person of Arome Osayi and Victor Obe himself, the apostle, you will not call that technically him being released, because he's already doing what he has gotten as an assignment from God, and he has gotten now his father's blessing after going back as a prodigal son.
I had to carry my beloved wife, and we went on a journey. And when Daddy saw me, like a prodigal son, he opened his hand.
Prodigal son, and then what you saw happen there, of course, happened. Even Joel Ogebe himself was there as well at that particular event. But you have to look at something here as well, which I observed in that podcast. Apostle Micahel Orokpo was not originally by default in RCN. He has been to other places. Even he spoke about it himself before he got to being part of the RCN. I think that's also important for you to note. And Ogebe himself was also in Omega Fire Ministry. Now you get to see as well, there was a time I read a comment back in, I think, last 2 years when I started talking about these people, and someone wrote a comment as well, a lady wrote a comment with respect to Joel Ogebe and Omega Fire Ministry, that I still find that comment very mind-boggling. Maybe one day I'll discuss it. It was quite disturbing when I read that. But I think it begins to make sense, as he himself even spoke about it by himself with respect to his ties to Omega Fire Ministry as well.
It was amazing. I remember many nights I'll be running away from Nigeria. I was coming from Omega background, so that's where we're coming from.
Okay.
I was a member of Omega Fire Ministry at that time. I connected probably to Omega when I was in Oju.
Now that I'm speaking in this lingo and what I expect people to understand based on what you believe in, doesn't really mean that I sign up to that which I'm articulating right now. I don't know if you understand, but either ways, I'm just following the principle of what is laid down in the system that exists in the Pentecostal angle of spiritual fatherism, succession, starting up your ministry, and protocols that exist. So I have to respect that as well as I get to discuss this particular situation. But here is something we want to look at in my next conversation. There's this particular 10-year principle that Apostle Arome Osayi always speaks about, and he has applied it consistently in a couple of things I have heard him say. The next one, of course, I want to look at here really looks at the person of Micahel Orokpo. Is Apostle Arome Osayi really waiting on something to happen that probably would be unexpected? I'll see you in my next video.